Hello there, I'm Scotty. You're not. Once again, Planet CCH, Christian Hannah Horror, whatever you want to call him, has inspired me to do a video. As you can tell by the list, by the name. This is top 10 horror movies of the 70s. This is one that I have never done before because I didn't think I liked that many from the 70s, but after watching his video, I realized, yeah, I have about 10 that I could put in a list, so here we are. Bit of a disclaimer. Black Christmas is not on this list because I tend to like to use movies that I own. And I don't own that as of yet. If I did, it would be in the top 5, but it's a good movie. I just, I'm trying to go with what I own. And I have enough to cover the top 10, without needing to buy that one. I thought I would need to, but I don't. And there's also Phantasm, which was my number 10 till I realized, well, there's another movie I wanted to put in this. So yeah, I have this written list, but now it's no longer, right. We just have to push a number until we get to it. So dry skin and stuff, man. So I also want to have a disclaimer that this list might piss off some hardcore horror fans who really like some of these movies and think they deserve to be higher up. But this is my list and how I feel about them. So with that in mind, because I added another movie, this one is now number 10. It was number 9. It's now number 10. And that's the original George A. Romero, Dawn of the Dead. Nothing against this movie at all. I like it. I prefer the remake. I'm one of those. But this is a very well made movie. Very good. I think the acting in this is very good. I prefer Day of the Dead and I prefer the remake. But this is absolutely one of the greatest zombie films ever made, without a doubt. I was just late to the party with this one, and as you know, the older the movie is, it's a little bit harder for me to get into, but I do enjoy this. Number 9 is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now again, you might think, why the hell is this so low? To me, it's the rewatch value. I can concede this is one of the greatest horror movies ever made, just like Dawn of the Dead. But the grindhouse style, I've said this before, grindhouse style movies are not for me. The grimy stuff, I love the Terrifier movies, but they're getting to me. When it just gets about, you have these segments of art just killing people. And while that's not what is really here, the grindhouse element does stop the rewatch value for me. And also, Franklin, he's annoying. These characters are annoying. This dude just goes walking in to a house and is surprised when he gets clocked upside the head with a little hammer thingy by Leatherface, right? But it is a certified classic. But the rewatch value for me just makes it low on the list. Number 8 is the Amityville Horror, the original. When it comes to haunted house movies, this is a classic, but I don't know. This is one I prefer the remake, and that's solely because it's from that era of when I started watching horror movies. The 2000s was my era, which is why I kind of gravitate towards it a little bit. I love the 80s. I think the 90s are underrated, and I always gravitate to the 2000s, even though there's a lot of crap in that era. So I prefer the remake. And by the way, if you ever buy this, I think I pointed this out, it says the remake's in there. When you go to the last disc, it's actually Amityville 3D. I do have the remake on its own. I bought the DVD, so I had it. And I thought about switching to this around, but the original is a classic. but it's again, it's a product of its time. When it's like an older movie, it's 1979, so it's closer to the early 80s. But even early 80s movies to me are a little bit hard to watch. But it has great performances from Josh Brolin and Margot Kidder. It's great. I just kind of like the remake better. And I know a lot of people have a problem with that because hey, this is the classic and the remake is 2000 grunge, 2000s music video stuff, and I get it. But that's my era, you know. Number 7. Number 7, Alien. Ridley Scott's Alien. I'm one of those who prefer. A lot of people say, "Oh, it depends on which day. I like Aliens more. I like Alien." For me, I always prefer Aliens. It's just game over, man. Game over. Yeah, how do I get out of this chicken shit outfit? It's just a lot more going on. Where the one thing that keeps me going back to this, right? Right. I use that gag because I like it. Especially when Henry Dean Stanton is in a movie, right? Right. That's the one gag I keep going back to about this movie. But I like the character. Sigourney Weaver, a badass. This is proto that. This is like, if we were comparing this to other final girls of this time, Laurie Strode, very much in the same vein where she's a prototype of what she would be. And you have Ellen Ripley's Aliens is very much like H2O Laurie Strode for me. Because the first movie with Laurie Strode, her character is crap. But, and no, I don't consider Ellen Ripley a final girl. The reason for that is because, much like Sarah Connor, who I also don't refer as a final girl. Well, this is more horror than a Terminator. A lot of people say Terminator is a slasher. I think it's a sci-fi thriller, but that's me. They're too badass to be final girls. I know final girls can be badass, but the final girls, in their first movies, they're a little bit so-so, but their characters have become so notorious with being badass that they've surpassed the level of final girl and just become lead female kick-ass character to me. And it sort of starts with this, but really it's Aliens. Get away from her, you bitch! Don't I stay away from her, you bitch? This is film class, right? I know that's wrong. It's just a line. But yeah, Aliens, number 7. Number 6, Alien, excuse me, number 7. Number 6, The Exorcist. The Exorcist. Classic film. Prefer Exorcist 3. I'm one of those. So sue me. I like a good crime procedural thing. But this is good. I've revisited this. I did a review on it once. I did revisited. Did a whole series. And this one and 3 are the only good ones. Sorry to say. I think I did the new one, Exorcist Believer. I watched it on Peacock and did not buy it. No Cesar. But this is a classic. Plain and simple. Again, haunted house films aren't exactly my forte, but this is a possession. Haunted house possession. And it works. And Linda Blair's performance is great. Also, I know he had some unorthodox methods, but if it wasn't for that, for William Friedkin doing that, I don't think we would have gotten the performances that we did from these actors. From Ellen Burstyn, from Jason Miller, even from, what's his name? What's his name? Max von Sydow. That's right. Yeah. Alright, so now we're on number... Number 6, the movie that I had to put in this list to replace Phantasm and push it off the list. Dario Argento's. It's not Suspiria. It's not. I like Suspiria, but my favorite Argento film is Profondo Rosso, aka Deep Red. This is... I don't know. Maybe it's because it's slasher-esque, and that's what I kind of like. It's a giallo, where Suspiria is not really a giallo. It's more of a spooky witch story, where this one, it has those slasher elements that draws me to it more than Suspiria, which, again, I don't mind. I think it's a good movie. But this is the one I prefer, Argento. I also like Trauma. So don't, when it comes to Argento and his Master of Horror episode, Jennifer is actually really good. But this is the one, The fact, and I'm pointing this out to you, if you haven't seen it, maybe fast forward until I'm not holding this one up anymore. But the fact that the killer is revealed in one of the first scenes. You can see the reflection of the killer. I'm not going to say who it is, but you can see the reflection of the killer in the mirror. And you don't notice it because you think it's just a part of the decoration. You see it, but you don't think anything of it until the reveal at the end. You're like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. And that's, what Argento was good at. He's very good at that. So, yeah. And I also have this thing where I've tried to watch Fulci, Italian horror, and I don't know. I watched The Beyond. I think I watched one more of his. Maybe it was just The Beyond. I don't know. I just can't give it his. Is there a little too weird for me? I know a lot of people point out, well, at least try to watch Zombie. That's his big one. I'll give you that. Eventually, maybe, if I can get my hands on a copy or something, maybe for Halloween Horror Month this year, I'll get a copy of Zombie and I'll review that. I'll give you that. That's Fulci's big one, besides The Beyond. And Beyond is not a bad movie. It's just weird. Anyway, number 5. Number 4? No. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Number 4. The Omen. The original Omen. I thought hard on this. Where should I put The Omen? And I thought about it. You know what? The more I think about it, the more I love this movie. It is... Now, as much as I berate the second one for being more of the same, this was the original one that did it. Yes, they're very much Final Destination style kills before there was a Final Destination. But it feels like the second one is being redundant by just copying and pasting the same kind of idea. And then the whole thing with Damien in that one where he's conflicted and then all of a sudden he's like, no, I'm evil now. Even though he was conflicted about it, now he's just going to accept it. This one is a classic. I don't know when to say classic. It's all for you, Damien. It's all for you. And Gregory Peck. I don't know why I say it like that. He doesn't talk like that, but I do. David Warner. An early David Warner appearance. The second Doctor. David Troughton is in this. So, yeah. And I didn't expect much of this when I watched it because I've seen the remake. And then I put this one on and I was like, wow, the remake copied like everything from this. It's not as shot for shot as Psycho, but they copied a lot. They changed a couple of things. Just a couple. But this is the better one. The acting is, for one, better. Nothing against Liev Schreiber. Julia Stiles is not bad. But it's just, I don't know. I feel like Mrs. Baylock is a little more subtle in this one than she is in the remake. Well, right away, you're like, okay, she's evil. Because they were like, well, if they've seen the original, they know she's going to be evil, so let's just make her right away. Here, she's a little bit ambiguous. Something might be up, but All right. Much like Deep Red, this is one he didn't have on here. He had Suspiria, and he had Zombie. But this is my own personal list. And I feel like this had to be on here. It's a remake. It's a remake of a 1950s film, but I figured it had to be on here. And that is The Invasion of the Body Snatchers. When the minute I watched this movie, from the start of it to the end of it, I was hooked. The ending of this movie, because you think throughout this movie they're going to find a way to stop it. And then you see, I don't remember the character's name, but she runs up to Donald Sutherland, thinking he's going to help her. Spoiler alert, by the way. And he just turns around, and you hear that scream, and you're like, oh shit, they got him. And it's horrifying. And I don't understand why they've remade this so much. You had the original one from the 1950s. You had this one. You had Body Snatchers in the 90s. And then in 2007, a movie called The Invasion with Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig came out. And I had no idea that that was connected to this at all. I had heard about Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I eventually watched The Faculty, which is pretty much kind of the same thing. You want to say it's a remake, a pseudo remake, whatever. But this is fantastic. The effects are also pretty good in this compared to what I've seen of the remakes in the 90s one. But it's great. So the top two are the two obvious ones. When you think of the 1970s horror, it's either blank or blank. The question is, which one is number one and which one is number two? And they're both very great directors, very respected, very big filmographies. The question is, which director is my favorite of the two? And if you know me, you know who my favorite director is. So as much as certain fans of a certain franchise are probably going to be pissed at me, number two is Halloween. Yep, I did it. Absolutely throwing no shade to this whatsoever, though. Halloween, again, I've said so many times, is a classic. It is one of the greatest horror movies ever made. And I've started to notice there are a lot of good movies in the 70s. He said it was the best. CCH said it was the best decade for horror. I still maintain it's the 80s, but it is a pretty decent decade for these horror movies. That you know, there's the good ones. There's good ones. That's not even talking about other ones like The Last House on the Left, or The Hills Have Eyes, or like Phantasm that's not on this list, or Black Christmas. You know, a lot of those that aren't on this list that are still good. He had a lot of them. He had 16. But Halloween, John Carpenter. What he did with this movie, he kicked off the slasher genre. Whether you say it was Black Christmas that started it, or it was Peeping Tom, or even Psycho. This was what started, because it wasn't for this, we wouldn't have Friday the 13th, because it was David S. Cunningham said, hey, let's rip off Halloween. And if it wasn't for Halloween Day, we wouldn't have Friday the 13th. You know? And I'm also going to throw it out there that if it wasn't for Halloween and Friday the 13th, then Wes Craven wouldn't have been forced to reinvent himself in the 80s from his grindhouse stuff and try to make something new and create Freddy Krueger. So it's kind of that thing. Right? And then you wouldn't have Scream. So Halloween, one of the most influential movies of all time. But number one, you know my favorite director of all time, Steven Spielberg. So without doubt, the best horror movie of the 70s. Salsa Shark. Wait, no. Jaws. Jaws. What can I say about Jaws has now been said. This movie benefited so much from a mechanical failure because sometimes less is more. And it is with this film. Just fantastic. And again, I think the performances of the actors from Roy Scheider to Richard Dreyfuss to... what's his name? I had it. Robert Shaw. I'll sell it. Even that son of a bitch, the mayor, you know, puts in a good performance. You hate him. You want to hate him. You gotta hate him. And this movie is just... it's a little bit risque in the back there. It's from beginning to end freaking great. And yes, I think it's a better movie than Halloween. Mostly because I grew up with this. My mom watched this whenever it was on TV. So I grew up with Jaws. I grew up with Show Me the Way to Go Home. I'm tired and I want to go to bed. I grew up with We Need a Bigger Boat. I grew up with the... I can't do the shot, but I grew up with Jaws. So that's why, for me, it's better than Halloween. Sorry to say, but it is. So there you have it. My top 10 horror movies of the 1970s. And I think this is going to start another series. One that will probably be easier for me to do because I'm not going to have to wait for him to do his. Like I'm doing the best of each, decade. Or each year in that. So I will look at my best of each year and see if those 10 are probably the best but so it's probably the same list, but what is the order, which is the best, which is the worst? So look forward to that. It's just it's the same list but rearranged, basically. 90s too, I think, because that would be the point of it, right? You're picking the best from each one, unless I think that there are better ones from other years, and I just pick from each year. I have to look, because I think one of them, 1980, I think I just picked because I think a couple of them I just picked because I didn't have any other ones to pick. So let me look, and then we'll see. We'll see how it goes. There's definitely a couple others I kind of want to have on that list, but let's see. So, what are your thoughts on my list? In the comments, let me like, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'm Scott, and I'll see you in the next one.